Howdy, hotshots. It's the Dividend Daddy, your favorite, not a financial advisor with not financial advice. I want to talk to you today about my Ulty waterfall method. All right. Now, Ulty is down a bit this week. It's been down for a couple of weeks. Okay. I bought up at a higher price. I've been cost averaging down. I'm not worried. Okay. I want that fatty divvy. I want to reinvest my divvies and drip those bad boys. All right. But I'm out here grilling and chilling. All right. Got my little tiny barbecue there. Got some chicken on the bobby. Okay. That's a very poor excuse for an Australian accent. However, I'm thinking about my waterfall method. There is a psychological issue with buying stocks, ETFs, option, whatever you're buying on a red day. But we all know that buying on a red day is when you get a lower price, right? So it is counterintuitive to be buying when everyone else is selling. That's how money is made. All right. Now you do what you want to do, but I buy extra shares on red days. But it's hard psychologically. And so it's easier for me just to open my account and see, oh, I've picked up more shares. So what I have done is designed a little bit of a waterfall method. Maybe there's some technical term, some jargon out there that has a different terminology for this. All right. There's probably some system out there that somebody has built. But what I do is I look at a price and I go, if it drops to this price, then I want to buy some shares, right? We all know we can place a limit order and buy shares whenever it reaches that price. It is harder for me to log on to an account, and maybe it's just because I barely graduated high school and I ain't that bright, all right? But it's harder for me to look at a stock and go, oh, it's going down, and then buy it with the fear that I'm catching a falling knife. But if I have already evaluated and decided that this is something that I want to invest in, then I do need to buy at those lower prices. So what I do is I just preset limit orders at the price that I want to buy it at. And then I don't look at it. I put a good till canceled plus extended limit buy order in. And that is how I manage my purchases a lot of times. Now, a couple days ago, the market was down, and I just logged on and I was like, oh, it's down. And then I bought more shares. I transfer more money in, I buy more shares, okay? Because I do want my cost average to go down. For those of you who are wondering, I did buy some Ulty. I started buying Ulty when it was like 6.18 or something like that. I kept buying it as it went all the way up to 6.45. And then I bought my biggest chunk of shares at 6.45. Okay. But as it started going back down, I just kept buying shares. And now my cost average as of this morning is somewhere around $6.25. So my cost average is getting lower, but I want it to get even lower. And so I'm perfectly fine. I'm happy if it stays around $6 because I could just keep buying more shares. I get more shares for less money and I can bring my cost average down. I don't really care if I ever get my cost average down to the price of the shares. Okay, it really doesn't matter to me because I don't plan on selling any of this Ulty. What I want to do is I want to collect the distribution. And so if I'm not going to sell it, but I'm going to get the same size distribution, then the share price doesn't really matter to me. In fact, the only regret I would have if the share price went to a penny, but it was still paying me 10 cents per week, the only regret I would have is that I didn't wait so that I could buy more shares at the penny, but I would still buy it at the penny, which means if it goes down to a penny, but it's still paying 10-cent distribution, then I am still going to own it, right? I don't particularly care about the share price, other than the fact that I could have bought more shares at the lower price, right? I mean, that makes sense, right? But I'm not going to look at it and say, oh, it went down, I better sell it. I'm in for the long haul. Now, if the distribution started fading and it started going down, then I'd have to reevaluate, right? We have to constantly reevaluate our positions. So if it went down to $5 and the distribution went down to 2 cents, well, then I'd probably look at selling it. But if it goes down to $5 and the distribution is still 10 cents, I'm not going to sell it. Okay, so a little bit of a downturn doesn't matter to me as much as the distribution rate. And a 10-cent distribution per week at these price levels is pretty attractive. Now, I'll tell you something else. If Ulty went up to $40 and it had a 10-cent distribution per week, I'd probably look at selling it. So the ideal situation for me is Ulty stays $6 forever. Okay? And if more money comes in than what they can support a $6 share price, and the share price has to go up, I would rather them just give that to me in a distribution, because ideally that stays right flat at $6. If it was a $6 savings account for me and it was paying me 80%, I would be perfectly happy with that. I would take it every day of the week and twice on Sunday. All right? So what I do in order to counteract my psychological aversions, shall we say, to buying on a red day and being afraid that I'm catching a falling knife, is I set up multiple limit buy orders. Now, you don't have to do this, okay? People, there's been some people in the comments that go, well, as soon as I saw what you looked like, I knew this wasn't something I should be investing in. Very well. Goodbye, Felicia, okay? I don't really care. I'm not trying to talk anybody into doing anything. I'm just here talking about what I'm doing, and I set a waterfall schedule for my shares. So like right now, I saw that Ulty dipped down to somewhere around 595 on Friday. So I go in and I go, well, maybe it'll touch that again and I'll be able to pick up some shares. I go in and I place an order at $5.95 for 50 or 100. I think I put 100 shares in there at $5.95. Then I go in and put an order for 125 shares at $5.92. Then I go in there and go, well, what if it keeps going down? Okay, I'm going to buy 150 shares at $5.87. And I'm going to buy 200 shares at $5.80. And I set up this waterfall so that it naturally cost averages down on my new purchases. So if it just ran straight to $5.80, which I don't anticipate it doing that, but I'm not a market guru, okay? If I was, then I would be uber wealthy and I wouldn't care about what Ulty is doing, all right? Because I would just be on a yacht sipping Mai Tais, okay? Out on a boat. But I don't know what the market is going to do next week. I can guess, but most of the time, my guesses are, surprisingly enough, you'd think I could flip a coin and be right 50-50, but I am not right 50% of the time. Okay, so my guess is wrong a lot because I look at what's going on in the world and I go, well, everything should be down. Everything should be going down, but it's not. And so I've been wrong for years, because for years I thought inflation is eating away at discretionary spending. People aren't making as much at their jobs. People are having to work 2 jobs. The employment numbers are inflated. They're falsely inflated. And so I think things should be going down. I don't understand how people are buying $1 million houses and Starbucks and having $1,000 car payments and still able to run the market up to where it is today. I don't think the PE ratio should be what they are today. So if I were only going by what I thought, I would be wrong. But I just continue to invest into the market because I know I'm wrong a lot of times, okay? So if I am wrong and the market continues down next week instead of rebounding like we've seen it do 1,000 times, and Ulty follows the market down like it did on Friday, then I will buy shares at $5.95. And I will buy a few extra shares at $5.92. And then I will buy even more than that at $5.87. And I will buy even more than that at $5.80. And it will just help me cost average all the way down and just snag those shares. Now, if it hits $5.95 and I buy 100 shares and it goes right back up to $6.03 like it did on Friday, well, then I got an 8-cent discount. Okay, not a whole lot of money on 100 shares, but I'm doing this all the time. And so I'm getting 100 shares here and 50 shares here. And I get my reinvested dividends and I pick up 30 shares here. And right? That's what I'm doing. And it's cost averaging me down. And I set it up in advance to overcome that psychological barrier. So if you have the same goals that I do and you think that that's a good idea, I wanted to throw it out there in case you hadn't thought of it. Talk to you later.